Hey cats, it's your midsole man Eddbud here. Today in hand I have a review of the Altra Torin 7. Been a long time since I tried out an Ultra shoe, probably a couple of years or so, but this one's very much a shoe for the daily category. So how does it hold up in that very competitive running shoe zone? Let's find out. Thanks for tuning in, people. Help the channel to continue to grow by hitting that subscribe button and giving this video a thumbs up like. It really helps out. Danke schön. So in hand we have the Altra Torin 7 here. This is a shoe that Ultra have sent over to me for review. They're not paying me to make this video. They're not vetting my views before you, my valued viewers, get to see them. So these guys are the masters of the zero drop midsole. That means the height in the heel is approximately the same as that in the forefoot. The Torin 7 in my UK size 11.5 here comes in at 300 grams on the money. That's about 10.6 ounces. I have gone up a half size in these. I used my previous experience in Ultra shoes to know that I need an extra half size. I've got approximately 34 millimeters of heel stack and about 34 millimeters up front too. This is a new foam. I haven't tried out this stuff. It's called Ego Max. It's certainly a lot more cushioned than the Escalante 2.5 I tried out a couple of years back. It is one of those more resilient sort of foams though. It gives me a Short A durometer softness score of 33. So that's a little bit over the 28, which is the average I've found across all the shoes so far. And the outsole rubber is a little bit softer than some of the others I've tried out. I've got about a score of 57 here. So it's about 3 or 4 less than the 60, which is sort of the average. We certainly have a wider forefoot here in the Torin 7. I've got about 12.1 centimeters and only about 8.6 in the heel. So it certainly allows your feet to sort of splay out a little bit in that mid to forefoot area. There's a little bit more room. Okay, we'll kick off the review with the upper first. Upper-wise, we have a shoe very reminiscent of one of my favourites, the Pegasus 35 from Nike. We've got that slightly taller tongue length here and that heel flare. I guess they mean for you to use it as like a pull tab or something, but it does give me those Pegasus 35 vibes. Not that you really need to struggle to get the shoe on. I always unlace my shoes and put my foot in and lace up accordingly. You never know which socks you're going to be wearing. Some are thinner, some are a little bit thicker. Just seems like the sensible thing to do. There's easily enough padding here to alleviate any lace tension over the top of the foot. I do like how these lace loops here pull the upper of the shoe up and around your foot. It's a really nice lockdown. Just easy to achieve. I would suggest you may struggle a little bit if you're going to do a runner's knot with the shoe. Laces are a little bit short for that. You need the dexterity of a seasoned seamstress to do a double bow or double knot if you're going to do a runner's knot. The heel area is quite padded, I guess. It's a little odd. It feels like some of the padding's on the outside of the shoe, but I think what they've actually done is reduce the materials around that part, and you've got more than enough padding there. It's reasonably plush in the heel. I think getting rid of that flare, they could have easily saved a little bit more weight. I don't really want to chop it off though. I don't think I'm going to go to that sort of length to see what weight I could save. Very much a traditional heel counter back here in the Torin 7, and there's a few very light overlays on both the medial and lateral sides. They help to provide a little bit of structure to the upper of the shoe. I would suggest the toe box is a little bit more constrictive in terms of the actual height, but you've got loads of width there. I'm not entirely sure you need loads and loads of height there in the toe box. Felt good to me, certainly at pace anyway. Wasn't too much extra material sort of flapping around. There's no gusseting on the tongue here whatsoever, and I found that it fitted my slightly odd shaped foot, I suppose, pretty well. Do really like the extra width here that we've got in the shoe. I've been using some toe socks recently. They just seem to really fit my foot and make running a little bit more comfortable, I suppose, and they worked excellently well with the Torin 7. I found the ankle area worked very well, just seems to sit in the right places for me around the ball of my ankle. I would suggest if you have a very narrow foot though, you might want to test these out in store, or at least use a good online returns policy. It might be that the shoe's just a little bit too wide for your foot. That ankle collar area just promotes a lot of flexibility there, a lot of range of motion in my ankle, and it meant that the shoe feels good at practically any pace for me. I found it to be very comfortable so far, with no blistering issues whatsoever. Barely any running shoes I've tried to give me any blisters. Maybe like 1 or 2 or something. Fortunately, this is not one of them. Very usable from a daily perspective in terms of the upper. I just wish they cooled it a little bit on the padding here in the heel. I don't think it's all necessary. I'd suggest the upper is pretty breathable as well, certainly in that toe box area. Getting rid of the gusseting here around the sides of the tongue really does help with that. I always find it's a bit constrictive if you've got too much gusting there, like some thick sort of material wrapped around your foot. This doesn't have that. It's a more traditional kind of setup. I'm going to give it a 2.7 for the upper after my initial runs. Midsole, midsole, midsole now. So midsole wise, a bit of an odd one here. It's not really what I was expecting. It's kind of soft enough. It reminds me of something like the Hoka Rincon perhaps, or a similar ride to some of Nike's React shoes, more like the Pegasus Trail 3. That stuff is a little bit more squashy than some of the other React formulas. This is like that softer Nike React formula. This Ego Max stuff. There's a nice response though from it when you run at pace. This is good in some ways for a more daily offering, as it does mean that the shoe feels a little bit more up for it when you're doing some faster work. Feels like there's a slightly more direct nature. Though I will say, be aware, a zero drop shoe is not going to be for everybody. I find when I run in those very sort of slower recovery zones, I do tend to heel strike a little bit more. I think there is enough cushion here in the Torin 7 to allow for that, but it absolutely felt better in terms of the midsole when I took it up to about half marathon pace. I think it's going to be one of those midsoles that works for some people and not others. I don't think a zero drop shoe is for everybody. I've kind of slowly integrated it into my daily running and it just feels kind of normal now. Though I have been finding a lot of those lower drop shoes do work very well for me, like the Asics Metaspeed Sky and that Rocket X2 as well. My oh my, what a great shoe that is. I think in the past I've tried a few Ultra shoes out and they're a little bit less forgiving than this one. Gotta remember this 34mm of stack here, that's a fair old bit. So that problem perhaps isn't so prevalent here in the Torin 7. I think the Ego Max foam is going to be one of those that softens up a little bit the more you use it. It just got better and better on my second run. I threw in 3 miles at half marathon pace and it just felt great. I was running way faster than I actually thought I was. I'm also glad to see that there's only a tiny little bit of exposed midsole foam on the rear of the shoe, which is right around the heel. I don't know if that provides you with a little bit more sort of bounce, I suppose, back there. There's only minimal creasing on that midsole material as well so far. I would suggest though that it does elevate this shoe out of just being a sort of daily offering. You can use it across a variety of different pace zones. It's just got a little bit more to it than something like the Velocity Nitro 2 or the Pegasus 40. I've actually really enjoyed wearing these for casual use as well in terms of how soft they are. They're just so darn good to walk around in. I've been throwing them on at any opportunity. So I'd probably give this about a 2.6 out of 3 for the midsole so far. I think it could be a daily use shoe for some people. I think I am one of those people, though I think I'd probably end up running some of those sessions a little bit too fast than I actually intended to. I think there's slightly more limited versatility here if you are a quite predominant heel striker, though I think that's a little bit more down to the zero drop nature of the shoe. Very impressed so far and surprised actually at the versatility of this one. We got to talk outsole now. Outsole wise, I'm really liking the decoupled rubber sections here that we've got in the Torin 7. Does really promote nice flexibility in the shoe, and there's quite a bit of coverage actually of that rubber too. There's almost no sort of exposed midsole. It's almost like tire type ridges here. They're quite small. They do pick up a little bit of grit and stuff, but it's very easy to remove it with a sort of thicker brush. So a few stones and bits of debris got caught in there in the foam sections, but again, I'm not really too bothered about that. There doesn't seem to be any sort of degradation of the foam at all, even though I've ran in some quite wet weather. I really enjoyed the grip actually on this one. It was on point as I was going around some corners and things. Felt really assured. Very, very nice. Just a really good outsole performance so far on a variety of different surfaces, which is kind of what you want from a daily shoe. You just need it to be able to work on most things. Not entirely sure I'd take it on some trails or anything, but then again, in the local area I don't really have any sort of very technical trails. Trails in the southwest of the UK tend to be very sort of muddy or boggy, and that's not really what this shoe's forte is going to be. Ultra have used a couple of different technologies here in the Torin 7 in the outsole. You can see the actual shoe itself is sort of shaped like a foot. You've got the inner flex grooves there in the midsole. They're designed to allow the unit to move and shape with the foot. In tandem with the foot pod technology, that aim is to make the shoe more natural in movement with your bones. So it's kind of like a energy rod type situation there. Softer though than that and more guided. It's less rigid, and I suppose that's where the more natural vibe of the shoe comes in, although I think that's more down to the zero drop nature than anything else. Just feels like you're running rather than trying to run to what the shoe wants you to do. Quite a lot of shoes have got that quite distinct curve forward here. You don't get that here. It does feel like your foot's putting in the work. You might not want that, but I actually felt it was quite liberating, in fact, running in the shoe. So very, very enjoyable and usable so far. At the end of the day, I think I'll give it a 2.8 for the outsole. Really impressive from Altra. Gotta talk value now. Okay, so this one comes in at around about £130 here in the UK. Oh, sorry, Earth credits here in the UK. So maybe puts it into that sort of Boston 12 category, around about the same price as the Adios 8. It's a little bit more expensive than something like the Pegasus 40. Though I think this shoe kind of fits into its own little zone. A little bit more responsive in design. The profile actually leads me to feel like it's more sort of like the Pegasus used to be. Quite light and nimble and usable before the sort of dark times where the Pegasus went to the React foam. At least they've made it a bit softer the last couple of iterations. Upper materials, the build, the design are really on point. Feels like a good quality item and you take it out of the box. And the shoes where I've paid maybe 100 or double the price and they haven't really felt like that. Just be interesting to see how the durability holds up in the long term. Though I think if you're looking for a shoe you can use on a more sort of consistent basis, this could actually do the business. I'm pleased to say it works for me from anything to easy recovery speed to half marathon pace. That's not something that all shoes are capable of, it has to be said. I like the fact that we don't have that sort of bulky feel. The weight's kind of on point really to use it for some sort of moderate pace work as well. Maybe similar to something like the Magnify Nitro 2 from Puma, though it just feels a little bit more nimble than that one somehow. Not quite sure how they've done it. In short, I think the 130 price point's pretty warranted, mainly due to the versatility of the shoe. I think it's got enough in the midsole here to perhaps pull in a few more interested customers. I think many people need that quite present heel to toe drop, but it appears that maybe I'm not one of them. So overall, it's hard to really knock it down too much on value at the price point. I'll give it a 2.7 out of 3 for value after my initial runs. Just got to see how it holds up over time, I suppose. If I've totaled the scores up correctly for the Torin 7, that gives us a 10.8 out of 12 after my initial runs. Quite a few people have commented that this is the ideal sort of Boston shoe. It's got the colorways there. Very impressed testing this one out so far. I'll put some more miles into it and see what we get. But yeah, even half marathon pace. Interesting. Have you picked up the Torin 7? Are you a fan of Ultra shoes in general? Let me know in the comments below. Quick musical interlude for you. I went back to an album that I've loved ever since I first heard it, actually from 2014, Lost in the Dream by The War on Drugs. It's great running music actually, some really good consistent rhythms here. Quite like those 80s drum machines, they just seem to jettison me forwards. Highlights for me really are Under Pressure, the first track on the album, and An Ocean Between the Waves as well. It's just a wonderful song with so many different emotions contained within the melody. These waves that sort of come over with the guitar solos towards the end. In fact, there's barely a bad track on this album. Really good if you're going to go off on a long run. Just something to really focus on as you're running forwards. I've enjoyed some of the other War on Drugs albums released sort of after this one, but I still think this is the best. So Lost in a Dream by The War on Drugs. Go and check it out. Thanks for tuning in, people. It's always appreciated. Hit that subscribe button and also click the bell for notifications when I launch the new videos for you. Give this video a thumbs up, like, and share it with your running buddies. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you.